Welcome back, Controls Champions. Today we're going to do a quick start on Codesys programming. My goal is to point out all of the basics of things to do and the things that might trip you up. Let's jump in. So, first things first, you're going to need to download it. Most regions in the world, you would go to codesys.com. But I want to point out for people in the US, you need to go to codesys.us or you won't be able to register. After that, it's fairly straightforward. Make an account, download it, you're good to go. Once we open it, this is what it's going to look like. This is all stock settings. We can open a new project here, or File New. And you can start with an empty project, but then you're going to have to add a few more structures inside of there. So I always pick on Standard Project here. This gives us a PLC and our first POU. POU is a Program Organization Unit. And it's going to ask us what kind of language we want to use here. There's a difference between ladder diagram and ladder logic diagram. I'm going to use ladder here because that's what's most common in my region. Pick ladder logic diagram. The other one looks like it might be legacy or something. It's simpler and has fewer features to it. So ladder logic diagram. Okay, so that took about 10 seconds for it to build this out. It does a bunch of stuff in the background. I think this interface will probably look fairly similar to anybody who's done PLC programming before. If I open this up, you'll see we've got a program in the middle. We've got a toolbox on the right. We've got obviously our program and pieces of the program over here on the left. We've got a toolbar up on top. If I'm looking at a POU, this is a Program Organization Unit again. If you come from Rockwell Land, Allen Bradley, you might be thinking routine, same thing. This is a discrete chunk of a program. Now notice it's already scheduled this first piece for us in a task. So this is scheduled to run. And we can see that also by double-clicking on this task, and we can see it here. If we have more POUs, we can add them, change them, whatever in here. This is set up for cyclic. It's going to run every 20 milliseconds. I'm going to add another POU right away. Right-click on Application, go to Add Object, and POU. And sure, we can make that one structured text. So we've got a few things to look at. I want to point out these tabs here, we can click and drag them and move them wherever we want. This is a pretty flexible interface. So if I want to see them side by side, I can look at it like this. If I want to put them back into the same tab, I can grab that tab and put it on the center here. They're back here. You can do top and bottom if you like. I will often for my demos, I like to put these on the side like this. I'll have maybe an HMI over here, the visualization with a program on this side so we can see both at the same time. In actual production programming a machine, I don't use this very often. Maybe sometimes I'll compare two pieces of code. But it is there for you if you like. Now let's take a look at this program. So first thing you might notice is the top of the program here has a variables table, and we can view this two different ways. We can view it as an actual table. Again, if you come from Allen Bradley Land or some other manufacturers, maybe this looks a little more familiar. You can type in a new variable here. I'm going to keep it this way for the rest of this demo just because this is the default and I think it works just fine. So if I wanted to add a variable here, I might have a variable A and it's a Boolean. You can add a comment here, 2 slashes makes it a comment, hit enter and keep on going. Notice that it auto capitalizes for me, that's nice. Now I want to point out these variables will not be remembered after you restart your PLC or you do a download or anything like that. If you want the variables to be remembered, you need to type var persistent retain. Hit enter, it autofills that end var there, and then we can put a variable here. Now this variable will be remembered when you do a power cycle. So let's take a look at the programming now. My experience with Codesys and ladder logic is that it's pretty mouse centric. They do have hotkeys, but they all require a control or shift or whatever. The defaults seem bizarre to me, and you can change them, but you can't change them away from requiring control shift whatever. So I don't ever use that. If you do want to use that, it's in Tools, Customize, and there's a keyboard tab here. You can set up shortcuts, or you can see what shortcuts might be already set up in here. It's like none of the ones I clicked there. There's a control insert. You could remove that. You could assign a new one. Again, it has to have a control in it, or a control shift, whatever. You can't just type an E or a D or something. So with that out of the way, let's click in here and start programming. I've got instructions up here on the top that I can use, or this whole toolbox. The toolbox is fairly complete with all the basics you'd expect. Boolean, math stuff, comparison, and other general ladder elements. If you want to use anything out of here, it's a click and drag. Let's say we want a contact, click and drag. If we want to use anything off of the top toolbar, it's just a click. So as long as I've got the right location selected, click on the thing. Now we have the thing. And I can double click in here and I can type either a variable that we already have, or I can type a new variable and it will pop up a dialog to add it for me. When I hit enter, this pops up. Notice this scope here, var. It's going to go right into the var table. And if we want, we can also set this to retain and persistent, and then it will show up in this second section that we have in the background. So I'll leave that off for now. This is more typical. Notice it popped up there. I don't like that space, so I'm going to get rid of it. Now, I want to point out right now this ladder diagram doesn't have any comments in it. And in a real production environment, I want to have comments. So if we go to Tools, Options, in the general, we want to show the network comment. You might be used to calling this a rung. They call it a network here in Codesys. And then we've got operand or symbol comments. Paradoxically, they call these variables, except for here, they call them symbols. So I do want to show the symbol comment, that variable comment, because I want to be able to tell users what A is or what it means, how to use it, whatever I want to tell a user or programmer. If we showed the operand comment, that is specific to this location, so it won't follow the variable through the program, which maybe is useful for you. That's not typically what I want. So I'll click on OK. Notice that it automatically filled that comment for us from up here. Unfortunately, it will not let us change that comment here. We have to change it in the variable table. Also note we can click up here. Just a single click gives us the rung comment. I find this a little annoying that it takes up the space for a comment even if you don't have a comment. So if we put in a few more, notice that there are all these comments. There's space for the comments even though we're not using them. And even if I populate with some stuff here, we get this extra. That's just the cost of doing business with Codesys. So know that it's there, and hopefully that's not too irritating for you. But I can type in here, rung comment, and there we go. Now let's talk about branching a little bit. So if I want to do something in parallel with this contact, like I say, this is fairly mouse-centric. We can click up here or find branches over here, but I find it easiest to just say I want a contact in parallel below. Now I have a contact in parallel below, and I can type whatever I want in here. We can also click and drag things to move them. So I can say, well, I actually want this above. Click and drag that to the little up arrow that you could see turn green. Or I can go back below. Can click and drag and put it after here. It'll get rid of that branch entirely. Codesys won't let you have a branch that has nothing on it, so the branch disappears. By the way, I don't know if you can tell, every time I move this is flashing orange at me. There's some scenarios where that'll just flash orange forever. I find that really annoying. So this is the default setup for Codesys, but if you click on this, it opens this window. I'm going to pin the window. And now it's there all the time. It'll never pop up automatically, and it won't flash orange at me. On the flip side, I have to remember to look down here in case there are errors. So here it's telling me there's errors. That's why it's flashing orange at me. But I find this a much less intrusive way to use this system. So what if I want to click and drag a variable name? I can click and drag, but notice the circle with the cross, that means it's not going to work. You have to click and let go. And now that the text is selected, now you can click and drag. That took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out when I was first starting with this. So there you go, free tidbit. Other ways we can do branching in Codesys. Let's say we've got a couple things here. I can right click and insert a branch. Okay, there's a branch here. Or I can right click and say set branch start point. Now it's going to ask me where I want that branch to go. I can click over here. Now I've got a branch there. And again, it won't let us have a branch. It'll let us have this little stub, but not a full branch without having a contact on it. So if this isn't what I wanted, maybe I wanted, a function block or whatever, say a math comparison or something, I'd have to put that on here separate and delete that. Here's another tidbit for you. If you have a normally open contact like this and you want a normally closed contact, you can use the / key on the keyboard. This might be the only keyboard shortcut I tend to use in Codesys. So it goes the other way also. Normally open, normally closed. Or you can right click and do some changes here. So whatever you are, make you not. That's the same thing the / did. And you can also set this for a positive rising edge or a falling edge by right clicking. Now, when I'm ready to check my program for errors, obviously I have an error here. I can click on this build button. It says generate code F11 or build generate code. You might recognize this symbol from other programming environments. It's kind of a typical build button. So if I click on that, it'll crank away, it'll check stuff. And then in this little window down here, it'll tell us all the errors. So that's ladder logic in a nutshell. Let's have a look at structured text. If you are already familiar with structured text, this is going to be a piece of cake because it's all using the keyboard. We can make new variables, something like this. They can also have comments, although they won't show up down here. But we can put comments in structured text kind of wherever we want. We don't have to turn on the irritating take up space feature. We can just type whatever we want and wherever we want. If I have two variables here, a statement might look like might have typed too fast. Seems like it didn't quite catch up there. How about that? There we go. That is structured text. So let's talk about connecting to the PLC. And in this case, we're going to connect to a simulated PLC. I'm going to change this so that there aren't any errors first. Let's click on that and delete. And we can delete that too. Check for errors. No errors, so that should work. If we go to online, we want to tell it we're going to do a simulation. And then we can click on this button right here to log in. This is saying connect to the PLC essentially. And if we wanted to do an upload or a download or just connect, like maybe we already have the program, it's all this button. I don't know why they call it login, but there it is. It's telling us that it doesn't have a simulated PLC right now, so it's offering to make it. Yeah, create that, do a download to it. And this is what it looks like when we're online. It's still kind of catching up here. But notice that we've got the variables are in a table format here. It's showing our current value. And it's also showing the current value here. If this was true, it would be lit up blue instead of being white like it is right now. If we want to change the values, we can either double click on the thing, on the instruction. And notice this isn't in there yet. This is just like prepared to send to the PLC. We have this column here also that says prepared. We can right click up here and say write all values, or we can right click over here, say write all values. That turns that on. And notice this has not set to true yet, which we would expect to. That's because the PLC isn't running yet. And just like any PLC, the simulated PLC can be running or not running. So click on this little play button up here and it starts. Now it's set that. And we can turn this back off, double click, right click wherever you want, write the values, and it turns new var off by itself. Okay, so I'm going to go offline. We don't have to stop it if we don't want to, or you can. Doesn't matter, we'll log out. Let's quick look at adding a visualization. This would be what you'd use for an HMI, for example. They call them visualizations here. So I'm going to right click up here and say, inside the application, right click, say add object. We're going to add a visualization manager. And we're not actually going to change anything on the visualization manager, but this gives us options to set styles and features of the visualization. And we'll let that grind away for a little bit. Okay, so that took, I don't know, maybe 40 seconds. It pops this window up again. I'm not going to change anything here right now. I'll just close it. Now, under application again, we can right click, add object, and add a visualization. You can give it whatever name you want. Call it My Screen. Now that that's open, note that we've got a different toolbox over here. And if you switch back and forth between PLC programming and visualization programming, you're going to notice that in the PLC program side, it doesn't want you to put any visualization stuff on there, so it's empty, but it didn't switch back to the other tab. Just know that that's going to be a thing. You have to change tabs back and forth. It has things like typical lights and switches and push buttons and whatever. I personally try to stay away from all this 3D stuff in any kind of production environment because I find the graphics distracting. You want the operator to be able to see what's important, and if you've got all these details in 3D everything, I think it's harder for the operator to do that. That being said, I do tend to use these in my online demonstrations because they fit that format better. Instead, right now, why don't we look at a more generic button? If I click on that, then I can click and drag a button out here. I can also click and drag from here and drop it out here. Forgive the delays here. I think my computer is struggling with all the things I'm making it do right now. So then how do we connect this to a program? We can open up this button state here and type in the name of the tag we want. Now, it's important to note, we talked about variables a little bit. These variables are all local to this POU, to this routine. So typically, if we want it to be accessible elsewhere, we want to make a global variables table. So we can right-click on application, add object, and make a global variable list. And this is just like all the other places that we saw. Type in here the name of a variable and its type. That was strange. So it was giving me the red squiggles and some vague error message. I just clicked on the build button to force it to reconsider what it was thinking here. That's fine. I don't know why that was a thing. So let's go back to our visualization now. Click on this button. And to access that variable, I type GVL for global variable list, which is just what we named that list. We can really make it whatever name we want. And I'm global pops up here as a suggestion. I can click on that or hit tab. Now I have a variable connected to that button. And we can put text in here by expanding the texts and type whatever text we want. Once there's text on it, you can click on the text and it'll auto-select and let you type in here. Before there's text on it, oh, it's making me a liar. This didn't work earlier. Yeah, we're back to that again. Oh, you just got to be a sharpshooter with your cursor. Click right in the exact middle. There's your text. Anyway, this is about as far as I want to go with the visualizations and with the Codesys system itself. If you want to learn more about programming, do check out our other videos. We've got a lot of them and they're growing. And if you want to see something further, more advanced features of Codesys or another platform, leave a comment, let me know, and I will see what I can do for you. All right, happy programming. Thanks, John. The weather is beautiful here at Breen Machine. Looking at the map, we can see a massive subscriber front coming right through here, with a high chance of likes and shares. And I would bet you we'll see some comments in the near future as well. Don't miss the great weather. Click here to keep it coming. Back to you, John.